The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Jauan Jennings is back, Dominic Pooney, and Niners getting healthy at the right time.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There's a theory, Croc, going around that Kendrick Bourne visiting the San Francisco 49ers Monday might have been that extra little bump that Jauan Jennings needed to get out on the practice field, and maybe all of a sudden the calf started feeling a lot better. What do you think about that? Jauan Jennings on the practice field for the first time, in a month for the San Francisco 49ers. Massive news heading into week 1.
Yeah, no, you start to kind of feel like if he's playing a little possum with the 49ers, or is it a contract negotiation tactic? But you bring in the guy, you kind of see a little competition there, and it's like, you know what, maybe the calf doesn't hurt as much. I will say this from his perspective. It's tough, man. Like, to know I was as productive as I was when I finally get opportunities to get targets, guys were down, like you needed me, and I came through in the way that you needed during that time to at least make the 49ers have a competitive offense. And the next year is, start getting guys back, and I'm still going to play a big role because Brandon Ayuk won't be back. He'll miss a little bit more than a quarter at least. How healthy will he be once he gets back? Will he look like himself? There still should be some, legit opportunities for Jauan Jennings. And if I'm him, this is the perfect time to capitalize. Like when they talked about trade requests and all that, like I felt like he's right. Either pay me what I'm worth. And we heard some crazy numbers floating out there, $20 million a year. I don't know about that. Well, I think you're worth whatever someone's willing to pay him. I would not pay him $20 million, but I definitely would pay him more than, what is it, $7, $8 million that he's going to be making this season.
Yeah, I think the tough part for the 49ers is that they just did that contract last year, right? And they just don't want to be held over the fire.
That was kind of to just get it going. All right, like they did with Emmanuel Mosley. Remember what they did with Mosley? Mm-hmm. It was something very similar where he was coming up on a contract year. They did something to where they extended him to where now it's like, okay, we got you under control for 2 years, but it was still a low amount of money. It was kind of when they felt like Emmanuel Mosley may be somebody that sticks around a little bit. All right, let's add this extra year. It gives us a little security in case he does ball out, and we can end up, just letting him walk in free agency, which they did. And I think the 49ers tried to do something similar to Jauan Jennings, but unlike the Emmanuel Mosley situation, like everybody was hurt like this. So it was like, well, damn, now we really kind of need you. Like Emmanuel Mosley, like obviously we like you. We would love to have you around, but we can kind of let you walk and we feel like we'll still be fine, even if you try to hold out or do something. The 49ers would not be fine right now if there's no Jauan Jennings. I mean, he knows that. So it's like, dude, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire and try to make something happen. And it's tough because the Niners didn't cave, and he ended up being the first one to cave and is coming back. And as far as we know, he's under the same contract.
Yeah, and who knows if the $20 million asking price is true or not. And look, I think the best thing that they can happen for the 49ers here is, look, $20 million a year. Some people are talking about even more than that per year potentially could be the ask. It's like, you just can't do that if you're the 49ers. But can you give them a little bump? Everyone feels good about it. Get through the season. Then we'll figure this thing out in the offseason. And maybe Jauan Jennings has to walk and hit free agency to get the full amount of money that he wants. And I think the 49ers would have to be okay with letting him walk if that was the case, if teams were willing to pay that, or if not, they're able to figure out something to bring him in to be the exact guy he's been for the 49ers, which is, a high-end number 3 sort of wide receiver. I think the 49ers, that's what they want. That's what they envision him to be. That's the piece that he is in the offense. He can start games for you, but you can't start paying him like a number 2 wide receiver around the NFL. And so I think that's where we're at, and hopefully that can happen, and he does stay healthy, and that this calf is – because, look, I don't think the calf was fake necessarily. You remember Alfred Collins had a calf injury, right? He couldn't work out pre-draft. He couldn't do OTAs. Like, he was out for 3-4 months, it felt like, right, with his calf injury. So it's not a short-term thing for a calf, and it's something that can bother you very quickly. So they got to make sure he's right as well and not force him into week 1 too. But hopefully the calf was right, and maybe, you know, the contract stuff was part of it and some posturing, and maybe coming back to practice can help the 49ers get their half over the line, and they can at least figure out something in the short term to make everyone feel good and get through this season. Then we'll talk again. I think it's really the only way that this can get figured out.
You talked about him being a high-end 3. I think if you were to tell him, he's like, well, when the team needed me to be a 1 or even a high-end 2, like, I was that, and I produced at a really good level. I think that's where the argument is for him. Like, what would another team be willing to pay him?
Yeah,
and obviously he's under contract, so it's not as simple as just us being able to find that out. But if I'm him, like, I think a team might be willing to pay me to be at 2,
right,
and be a guy that catches 80 passes for him. The 49ers, I just don't see that being the case if everybody's healthy.
Yeah,
even Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey will take away some of his targets as well.
Yeah, and Kittle. And so, yeah, in ideally, the 49ers, the way they've built this thing is Jauan Jennings is the 5th option in the passing game. And you can't pay that $20 million. And maybe he does deserve that from another football team. And you might have to go somewhere else to get it. Looking at the wide receiver group, there's a whole bunch of really good news as far as injuries go as we get a little bit more serious for week 1. And I think guys that might have not practiced during the summer, I think when you start talking about real football games, Croc, I think whatever that injury is and the seriousness of the injury, that conversation changes, and players might start playing through stuff that they might not have been practicing for a preseason game, right? And so I think we might see some of that as well as we get ready for the regular season. Guys trying to get the players to this point so they could hit the practice field, even if they're still working through something, which Dominic Pooney is. More on some of these other guys. I just want to focus on the wide receiver group. Jordan Watkins, rookie 4th rounder. He was working out on the side at practice on Monday. And so when you look at the group of 49ers that are available to play wide receiver here early in the season, Kendrick Bourne visiting, do the 49ers even need Kendrick Bourne? I was actually talking with Wink at our fantasy football draft, and we'll do our Winky Wednesday episode tomorrow. I was like, man, do the 49ers now have too many veteran wide receiver options? So they have at practice Jauan Jennings back, Ricky Pearsall, Russell Gage is back and healthy at practice. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Robbie Chosen were at practice. They're on the practice squad, could get elevated for week 1. And you have Sky Moore as well. And then you have Jordan Watkins working out on the side. So that's 6.5 healthy players. Do you need to add a 7th wide receiver there with Kendrick Bourne? Is that even a necessity anymore for the 49ers? And do you all of a sudden have too many veteran guys?
Well, I think with Kendrick Bourne, I think we know that it may be a little bit more of an insurance look, just in case something does happen to one of their guys. So 49ers, obviously, I mean, they've had a lot of issues with guys being able to stay healthy at the running back position, at the receiver position as well. Why not bring in Kendrick Bourne, see where his head is at, see what he's thinking, what's his market, right? Find out those things. And if anybody goes down, that could be the first person that you call.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The Steelers have extended Jaylen Warren, what it says about their confidence that this run game is going to get it together.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
The Steelers made a sort of a house cleaning move to sign Jaylen Warren into an extension. He was not signed past this season going into this week. And now he is signed with the Steelers through the 2027 season, reportedly a 3-year, $17.25 million, averaging around $5.75 million a year. Alan, this seemed to me like a move of confidence for a guy that hasn't officially started for the Steelers as a running back, has shown the propensity to fumble at times, but they really seem to believe in him. And as we've talked about the last few weeks, they seem to really believe that this run game is going to come together with this offensive line this year.
Well, you got the news during practice today that the Steelers had extended Jaylen Warren. I was excited to get into the locker room to see him, and he's still 5'8". I don't know. I know they say they extended him, but he's just a little. I mean, I didn't really know.
I would Yoshi bonk you right now if I had the possibility to do that on my show. But continue.
I'm not sure I've ever been Yoshi bonked mid podcast before. That's pretty good. I like that. Look, Jaylen Warren, I think, is one of the most under talked about parts of this 2024 Steelers season right now, because I think he's going to be really, really good. One of the things I asked him today is, you remember the Arthur Smith quote from, I guess it was back at minicamp maybe. He said, I didn't get Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf to play the wishbone, right? And they're going to throw the ball a lot more than they have the last few years. They're going to run a more passing offense, and that fits with exactly what Jaylen Warren's good at. He's a really good pass blocker. He's a really good receiver. And when he runs best out of spread formations where he can use his speed and his vision to get to the edge and find cutback lanes. Like, I just think he's going to be really, really good for the Steelers this season, and it's not a surprise to me that they wanted to extend him. I'm a little curious about the timing of everything, right? Because they could have just given him this extension back when he was a restricted free agent early in the offseason. So I'm not quite sure what changed or why they waited till the last minute here. But to me, this is kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want Jaylen, especially at this price? I mean, $5 million a year for a guy who I think is going to be a really, really good running back for him. I think this is kind of a no-brainer deal for the Steelers. And a guy who was an undrafted free agent, hasn't had a lot of career earnings in the bank, gets some future security, guarantees into year 2. That's a big deal for running back.
I mean, I think if they had slapped the franchise, or rather the 5th-year extension, on Najee Harris, that would have put him at what, $8 million last year?
I want to say it was a little less than that, but yeah, about that, yeah.
But it would have put him in the. But basically, they're getting Jaylen Warren for a few years for less than what they would have. 6.7. So less, $1 million less on a per year basis than what they would have been paying for Najee Harris just to stick around for one more year. I think that there's this confidence in him. I mean, we've seen how explosive he is. We've seen how fast he is. We've seen him be able to catch the football. I think there's a confidence that if they get him the creases, he's going to be able to take the yards. And he is a hard runner, as Kyle Brand likes to say. He's an angry runner, and he's one of the best angry runners in the NFL. I think there is an excitement there, and it's funny because I feel like you shouldn't lose sight of Caleb Johnson because there's a lot of excitement around him. But to me, the real excitement has to be about must feel really good about this offensive line moving forward, because the Steelers have not had a dominant run game in a long time. And when I say dominant, I mean like top 10. Even when Le'Veon Bell was in, Le'Veon Bell was a dominant player and he was a fantastic weapon. But I think there was only 1 year during his time with the Steelers that they even ranked top 10 in yards per rush, and that was the year that he was out for most of the season in 2015. But you have to go back to like 2007 for the last time the Steelers just straight up ranked as a top 10 rushing team in the NFL. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking like, hey, you want this offensive line to mature, I think Aaron Rodgers helps give this line a year to kind of adjust and where they don't have to be the guys that carry the whole offense by themselves with run blocking and being just the tone setters. But I do think that there's a vision that they want that to eventually be the tone of this team when they get a young quarterback on this roster.
Yeah, I don't know that the Steelers are going to be a dominant run team this year. And I think that's actually a term worth defining too, because you can have a really high yards per carry and still not be what I call a dominant run team. For me, a dominant run team is a team that the game situation dictates they must run, the other team knows they must run, and they're able to do it anyway. That to me is what a dominant run team is. You don't need 6 yards of carry to do that. We're winning by 4. There's 2 minutes left on the clock, and we're just trying to end this thing. Here's 7 handoffs in a row and a kneel down, and we can do it. Like, that to me is what makes a dominant running team. The Baltimore Ravens last year were a dominant running team. If you go look at the NFL team rushing from last year, and you look at the average yards per carry, I don't know that they were the absolute best. They were, but like it means more. It's not so much about you get yards per carry by getting explosive runs, by Lamar Jackson galloping through your secondary, right? That's how you get yards per carry. But for me, the ability to get 4 yards when you need to get 4 yards is actually the most important thing. I don't know if we're going to see the Steelers get there this year, but I do think they will be more explosive in the run game, and I do think they will be more efficient. That yards per carry, where last year they were 24th, 25th, somewhere in that range, they can get, I think, in the top half in yards per carry because they will get some more of those explosive plays. You will see Jaylen Warren with his downfield speed break a tackle, get a cutback lane, and then get 20 yards. And I think that's the thing that's been missing from the Steelers offense the last few years, is there just not been that big playability in the running game. They're still probably not the Baltimore Ravens, but I think they can be much more efficient, much more explosive than they have been in the past.
I mean, you look at the top 3 just total rushing yards on the year: Ravens, Eagles, Commanders, and right behind
Eagles
them.
Are another perfect example. Here we come. Stop
this. We're stuck. And I mean, the Steelers experienced that at the end of that Eagles game. How was it? An 11-minute drive or something ridiculous like that. The Eagles just held on to the ball and just kept grinding the Steelers down with their run. I think that's eventually what the Steelers want to get to be able to be. Like you said, I don't know if they're that this year. This is, again, a young offensive line. Fautanu making his first real starts in the NFL this year. Mason McCormick, a second-year, 4th-round guy. Zach Frazier, a second-year center. Broderick Jones getting his first real time at left tackle as the bona fide starter. It's going to take time for that group to coalesce and come together. But again, I think if they're able to just be a proficient unit, an above average unit in doing that, that'll be better than what the Steelers have had for a while. Because whereas the Steelers did rank in total rushing yards, they placed 11th last year. Like you said, when it came to yards per attempt, they were in the 20s. And so you want to take that yards per attempt, you want to get that up into the range of, being closer to the top 10 there. And then that shows that, hey, when you're grinding out those yards at the end of the game, when teams are wearing down, that's something. And to be honest, when people talk about playoff droughts, I think that's something that they've really missed in a lot of those games, was the ability to run the football. Because the last time they won a playoff game, they had Le'Veon Bell, and granted they didn't score any touchdowns with it, but having him out there, he had a whole bunch of yards. That was a huge part of what made them dangerous back then.
Yeah, if you look at the top 5 teams in yards per carry last year, not only do they have good running backs, the Baltimore Ravens, Eagles, Arizona Cardinals, and Washington Commanders all have mobile quarterbacks. The Steelers are not going to get that out of Aaron Rodgers. But the 4th team in the last team in the top 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Baker Mayfield can run a little bit, but he's not the rest of those guys, right?
Right.
And I think the Steelers can. If you look at that level of efficiency coming from Tampa Bay, which is primarily a passing offense, whose biggest offensive stars are Godwin and Evans on the outside, and little Bucky Irving can come in and lead a 5.3 yard. Like, that is the blueprint for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers one of the best absolute rushing offenses in the NFL? No, but they were extremely efficient because they got big plays. They passed to set up the run, and their running back had the explosiveness to turn a 5-yard gain into a 15 or 20-yard gain if you gave him some room.
The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Perhaps you believe the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. Odds are shorter today than they were yesterday, I'll tell you that. I think I got them at 25-1. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
I don't really care about Micah Parsons' run defense, but
the Green Bay Packers do need a plan to stop the Detroit Lions in week 1.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
There's a lot of cope going on right now in the media, from NFC North fans, from other NFC contender fan bases about Micah Parsons and his run defense. And let me state unequivocally, in the words of Mike Tomlin, we do not care. You do not acquire arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL, the most disruptive 26-year-old pass rusher in the NFL by far, clearly, and whinge about run defense. Is Micah Parsons a great run defender? No, he's not. That's not the point. It's like saying Deion Sanders was not a great tackler. Okay. He was also easily the best corner in the NFL and is an all-time great. And Micah Parsons is an all-time great. If you want to argue Myles Garrett is a little bit better at these couple things, fine. Okay. That's it. Myles Garrett is the only guy in Micah Parsons conversations. Okay. And I don't think there's another defensive player at any position currently in Micah Parsons conversations. Not Dexter Lawrence, not Pat Surtain. It's Myles Garrett, it's Micah Parsons. They're the best two defensive players in the sport. That being said, the Packers, and Micah Parsons said in his press conference on Friday, there is a plan for him. Presumably that is going to mean modified snaps, and that is the smart way to handle Micah Parsons coming off no preseason, no training camp. Remember that study that Matt LaFleur referenced that we talked about on this show about, preseason versus not? The players who don't play in preseason are more likely to get injured. Okay, that's Micah Parsons. And it's because you can't go from very little activity to full bore 60 snaps. Now, Khalil Mack did it. But the Packers are not. And the Packers have a week 2 Thursday night. So you can ramp up, you get a little bit of a bye, and then I think by week 3, we're talking about full go. Packers have to play in the meantime. And so I would expect that means for Micah Parsons, you're talking about 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs, maybe high leverage situations, maybe early in the game. He takes fewer snaps. Later in the game, you're hoping you have him in the 4th quarter to go rush the passer if you need him, though. If the Lions are playing with the lead, they're going to be running the ball anyway. But the Packers will need a plan without Kenny Clark to stop teams like the Lions. And for non-week 1 games, I believe that will involve Micah Parsons playing linebacker. 4 true defensive line bodies, because Micah Parsons is not. He's 6'3", 245. That's not a defensive line body. And whether that's their 3-4 that they've been using, their odd front, where Micah Parsons is a stand-up outside linebacker, and you've got 3 true defensive linemen plus an edge. Because on the Packers, that other edge is Rashawn Gary, who's 275. It's Lucas Van Ness, who's 275. It's Kingsley Enagbare, who's 260, but is a strong and stout run defender. You're not going to put Brenton Cox on the other side of Micah Parsons, probably, if you want to stop the run. But on 3rd down, you might. On 2nd and long, you might. So I think structurally, the Packers have done some of the things defensively that have them prepared to incorporate Micah Parsons. They've been showing some of those 4-man fronts through 4 true defensive linemen, and then the linebacker. In the preseason, it was Isaiah Simmons a lot of times. So you can have Edge Cooper and Quay Walker on the field. You put Micah Parsons really as your 5th defensive lineman. He's walked up, and now he can either rush the passer, he can drop, he can do anything. They can do that from an odd front. They can do that from an even front. And have 4 bodies that helps protect Micah Parsons, so he's not one of 4. What happens a lot of times in nickel, in odd front teams, so 3-4 teams, is you take the defensive lineman off the field. And now Micah Parsons has to be one of 4 guys to stop the run. So if the Lions want to run out of nickel, they can just come downhill at a 4-man surface. That's hard work for a guy 245 to hold up. He's very powerful moving forward, Parsons is. He can convert speed to power because he is explosive moving forward. It is the stoutness at the point of attack, because he's smaller, you can more easily move him. So I think the Packers will have to scheme around that with their personnel. And that is something Jeff Hafley did last year. 27% almost of his snaps were played out of true base personnel. 4 defensive line bodies and 3 linebackers. I think you'll see them do that on early downs with Parsons as the 3rd linebacker, not playing end, though he will be the end man on the line of scrimmage. So what do you do against the Lions? Well, you have to use the same plan you were going to use. The question is, who's going to play nose tackle? I have to believe that Nazir Stackhouse is going to be playing right away, heavy reps. My guess is they will start with that 3-4 look, where it's 3 true defensive linemen, and you'll see Devontae Wyatt, you'll see Carl Brooks, and maybe Colby Wooden could be Nazir Stackhouse with Brooks outside. I think Brooks ideally suited to be a 5 technique, given he was a defensive end at Bowling Green. They have some opportunities here, some options here. Maybe you want Nazir Stackhouse there on early downs. Maybe you want Warren Brinson out there, who's 6'5", 300, 310, with that 5 technique type body. We're gonna be finding out for the first time in Detroit. The thing is, last year, Kenny Clark was not a high-level player, in part because of the injury. And this was a top 10 running defense. I said this on the live show, which is, by the way, now our most watched show ever on YouTube. The Packers were top 10 already in passing defense, in total defense, and in rushing defense. Now, part of that was they played a significant amount of single high safety. Way more than Joe Barry did, way more than Mike Pettin did. And so you're stopping the run with personnel, with bodies, 8-man in the box. You're even more confident doing that with Micah Parsons as the season goes on, as he's playing a full load. He's not going to be able to do that week 1. So I think on early downs, you're going to see the Lions try and get to some play action stuff. Maybe try and get Jameson Williams over the top to convince the Packers, hey, you need to get 2 safeties back there. Now, I think they're going to be comfortable saying, David McKinney, Evan Williams, you guys can handle it. Edgerrin Cooper will be full go, really for the first time in a game against this Lions defense. He was at the end of last year, looked like one of the best run defending linebackers in football. This is his chance to go prove it. I think the Packers can solve this with a numbers approach. Just throw a bunch of different guys at it. They're going to have a hockey rotation up front. Rashawn Gary was one of the best run defending edge players in the NFL last year. Number 1 in ESPN's run stop win rate. Lucas Van Ness is a stout run defender. Maybe we see him playing more on the inside on early downs. I don't know how much that really helps you though, because is Van Ness going to be any more stout than say Colby Wooden or Carl Brooks? I don't see that. Van Ness is a very stout run defender on the edge. But if he's going to have to eat double teams, if the Lions are going to come downhill running duo, that's not the guy that I want taking on 2 when it's, the guard and center coming down. You want a defensive tackle body in there for that. You want Nazir Stackhouse in that, or Warren Brinson in there for that. Carl Brooks played nose tackle last year. Colby Wooden played some nose tackle last year, even though he's, 305 pounds. The Packers are going to try and keep their linebackers clean to make those plays and live with not having their defensive linemen knifing in there. Maybe they take more risks. Maybe they say, Devontae Wyatt, you try and shoot some more gaps. And hope that if there is a leak, that the safeties can come in and fill and take care of it. But I would guess the Packers' approach the second time they play the Lions will look markedly different than it will the first time they play the Lions.